Welcome to Julia's kitchen. I'm going to attempt to make Grandma's Kuken. And what I did first of all is I let it warm. I warmed up the oven a little bit so that it will help with the yeast bread rising. And then I've opened the oven so that it won't be too warm. And of course you turn it off just to have a warm area to help it rise. Then I have warmed the bowl, and the bowl is about a 5-quart bowl. And you really need 5 quarts, or a nice big bowl, because it will rise. And so that it doesn't go over, I usually put a towel so that it won't come over the edge. Okay, so what I need to start with here is 1 cup of sugar. And it has to be dissolved in 2 cups of real hot water. There's 2 cups of hot water. And just mix that around a little bit. And then take 3 packages of the dry yeast. Make sure that you look at the date on this. This says September 17, 01. So I guess we're all set with that. That looks like it's going to be okay. And then you put dump the 3 packages in. Make sure you get it all out. And mix that together. So it pretty much dissolves. It won't dissolve all the way. The hot water will help with this too, with dissolving. Then we need 4 cups of the bread flour. Mix it up a little bit more. I don't put in quite 4 cups. Now the recipe says to beat this until it bubbles, and I've used it's a 2nd cup. I used about 3 cups, and then just stir it well with the spoon. As I say, I haven't used the mixer, but I use the spoon. Just keep mixing it around until it begins to bubble. Get it all wet. You probably take a little bit more flour. when I have really beaten it, it gets kind of stringy. Now look for the bubbles. See if we see any bubbles coming up here. Yeah, I can see a couple right there. So I think it's going to be okay. Then I put the towel on so that when it rises, it will not come over the bowl. And I put it in my warm oven that I have turned off. It's just warm enough so that it will help it to rise. Mother used to put it on top of the register. And of course, if you don't want it to rise right away, then you don't need to put it in a warmer place. And it should take about an hour and a half for the first process. Yeah, all right, now it's been about an hour and a half, and it's been rising. So I'm going to take it out of my oven, and that's about, you know, what it'll look like. Sometimes it's up a little bit more, but you can see all the bubbles. Now this is if you haven't worked with the yeast bread before. Now I'm going to turn this on again just to warm it up a little bit more for the next rising. Okay, now the next step calls for 4 eggs, and I have put 4 eggs in this bowl, and I beat them a little bit with this little beater. And I need a tablespoon of salt, so I've got my iodized salt here, and 1/3 of a cup of dry milk, which is here, and 1/2 pound of lard, and about 1/3 of a stick of oleo, which I have here, and then my bread flour. And be sure you use the bread flour. Okay, now, then you just put it in, beat in the egg. And one thing that it's a good idea to do is to remove all your jewelry. I couldn't get my rings off, but even your watch, if you haven't worked with the yeast bread before and kneaded it, if you don't have long sleeves and so on, it does help. Okay, so I put the eggs in. Now I need a tablespoon of my iodized salt. And it helps if you get it all ready ahead of time because it gets kind of messy when you're working after when you begin to knead it. Okay, now I need 1/3 of a cup, as I said, of the dry milk. Put a tablespoon of salt in. Then I'm putting the dry milk, 1/3 of a cup of that, and then the lard, and 1/3 of the stick of oleo. Okay, now I'm going to mix that in. And I kind of broke it up ahead of time so that it would, you know, mix in a little bit better. I use my hands an awful lot. See that? Okay, now this, you just have to kind of go by feel as far as putting the bread flour in. And I just like to use my hands. That's what I'm saying. It gets kind of messy. Mix it around. And then you can squeeze the oil and the lard in as you do it. Just kind of mixing it around. Okay, now I put enough red flour in so that I can knead it, and you want to get it so it's not too wet, but you want to put enough flour, have enough flour available so that you can use it if you need it or if it sticks. I also just kind of cleaned out the bowl just a little bit and put a little bit of oil in it, so that when it rises for the second time, it won't stick to the sides, but will come up and rise. So now I have to knead the dough, and this has to be done for 5 minutes. Of course, if you have a bread machine and you know how to use that, you can perhaps do a job just as good as all of this work. So we knead it for 5 minutes. In the meantime, when I took this out of the oven, I turned the oven back on to warm, and we turned it off now just to warm it up a little bit to speed the process and rise. So this is the second process. 5 minutes I'm going to do this. You can see that it's not sticking to my hands now. Well, it's hard to know how much flour you really need, so be sure you start with a full 5 pounds of flour. Okay, I'm continuing to do this for 5 minutes. And be sure you have extra flour by your pastry cloth. As I said, because it could stick. But you see how this is coming now. This is a sort of nice ball. And I'll put this now into the bowl that has had a little bit of oil added to it, and swish it around a little bit in the oil, so it, as I said, so it doesn't stick. And then, not too much oil, maybe I got a little bit more than I really need, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. Then I'm going to put the cloth over it again so that it doesn't expand over the pan, and put it in my warmed oven, which of course is turned off. And if it's too warm, it's going to cook it, so you got to be very careful, just warm. And we leave that now until it rises, doubles in size, and then we'll do our third process. You can see how it's ready to come out now. Risen just about to the top of the bowl. Boy, doesn't that look good? So I've taken the dough out of the oven, and or the warming place, wherever you want to do it. I have my pastry cloth here, which has a lot of, which has enough flour on it, and my rolling pin, because I'm going to divide the dough into 8 different sections, because I'm going to make 8 Kuken. And I've got my pans here, and they have been greased. And I'll put 4 of these on each of the pans. Now, what I've done is ahead of time here, I've got 2, well, actually a half a pound of melted oleo, and which I'm going to need. And I've got sugar, a cup of sugar, and a tablespoon of cinnamon and a teaspoon of nutmeg, which I'll mix up. Well, I might just as well mix that up now. This will go on the dough when I get it rolled out. Okay, I'll mix more of that later. Okay, so now I guess I am ready to take this out, and I want to divide it into 8 different pieces. Try to make them as even as you can. Seven, 8. And a little bit more flour on the pastry cloth here. And then I'm going to take this. I put a couple more in there. Give myself a little bit more room. And I'm going to roll this out. Make it as square as you can. A little bit too much flour here. So that should be about the right size. And then you take a brush and put the oleo on it. The melted oleo on your piece here. And the purpose of this is to hold on the sugar. And I'm going to sprinkle on the sugar and the cinnamon and nutmeg. Getting along the edges. Then you just start rolling it up. Now, what you want to do is pinch this. You got a little too much flour in this. This would be all right. Kind of pinch the edges so that they stay in place, and then roll it like this, and then put it on the cookie tin. Now the cookie tin has to have sides on it, because these are going to rise for the 3rd time, and as they rise they're going to get bigger. I'm not going to put as much flour in this time. And I'll do one more, and then we'll get that ready to go in the oven. So just roll it. they kind of come out in different sizes. It's hard to get them all the same. Okay, then I just paint it with the oil. Or the margarine, same thing. And sprinkle it with the sugar mixture. And roll it up. Take the end of that doesn't look as good as the other end. Yeah. Pinch the ends and roll it up and twist it. Okay, now I'm going to do the others, but I'll just do these three so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so what I do is I cut them like this, almost all the way through. It makes probably, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I got about 9 out of that one, and I'm going to cut this same way. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 out of that one. And then okay, now, then you just sort of lay them on top of each other. One on one side, one on the other. And then this one, so like a little jelly roll. Okay, and then what I'll do before I'm done, I'll do the other, I'll do 1 for here and then 4 for there, so I have 5 more to do. And this is really a double recipe. My mother always had one in the refrigerator or freezer. And they really freeze very well. Okay. These out of their warming place, and this is about the way they should be before they're cooked. This is the final step. So I usually do 1 pan at a time because I think they cook better. I have the oven on now at 325, and the recipe says 25 minutes, but they're usually done in about 20. So I keep the other one covered over here while I put the other pan in here, but I'll wait until it gets up to temperature before I put it in. And then we'll frost them and put some nuts on top, and then we will eat them. It's about an hour and a half to rise, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. The others took about an hour. It's hard to know. A lot depends upon the warmth and how fresh the yeast is and so on. They look done, and it hasn't taken, it's taken about 18 minutes. So I'm going to leave these here and put the other ones in. See how nice they are. They're ready to go in. And I will set the timer for, again, I'll set it for 20 minutes, and then I'll watch them carefully. Now this is important, you have to put the frosting on while it's still hot. And the frosting is made with the leftover margarine and a little bit of vanilla, and of course the confectionery sugar, and a little hot water to liquefy it a little bit. So as soon as you get that on, then you can put candied cherries on it, toasted almonds, anything. I usually find I have some of these nuts, the walnuts, so I use these. Or at Christmas time you can put sprinkles on it. Now we started at 9:30. And I kept right with it, and it is now 2:15, so it won't be until about 3 o'clock that I'll be all cleaned up. So it really takes a full day. I started at 8:38. Sorry. Sprinkle something on top. You don't have to put anything on top if you don't want. At Christmas time, Mother used to put the sprinkles on, but I find that it doesn't freeze as well. Doesn't look as well, the color. And I'm also sure that there's an easier way to do some shortcuts, and probably some low cholesterol kinds of things you can do with it, but I've always been satisfied with this, and I hesitate to try something different. And then we got one more. And then we usually take some cardboard, cut them the size of these Kukens, and cover them with aluminum foil, and put these on it and wrap it, and as I say, they freeze very, very nicely. And now I'll sprinkle some of the nuts on this last one here. So these are all done. All we have to do is wait for them to cool, and we'll wrap them up and put them in the freezer or give them away, whatever. So, bon appetit.